And hello, welcome everyone to this video of ASP.NET Core. So last time we were talking a lot about Entity Framework Core. I think I've talked a little bit too much. So maybe I just want to start by getting our hands dirty. Okay, you will not have any other prerequisites other than having maybe a page. You should have at least a page like this. An interface setup, and then of course we kind of tested the interface out on our page, so that you have something like this. We have add, clear, populate, delete, update, all these kind of things. You may want to have this already set up. Okay, if not, you're doing everything from scratch, it'll be very challenging. Okay, so we take it step at a time. We have the interface. We have a page like this already with all the user inputs, some server-side validation, etc., and even a table right here. All this should be sort of set up. If not, it's very hard to figure out what's going on. Okay, there's so many moving pieces. So we get the simple parts working first. Okay, so without further ado, let's just start. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is of course install this MariaDb, which I hope you have, and I just assume you already installed MariaDb. Okay, so if you already installed MariaDb, you should be able to come to an interface like this, where we are able to see and access all the tables here. Okay, second step after installing MariaDb, you will need to install Pomelo.EntityFrameworkCore using your .NET. Okay, so how do we install it? Okay, I've already covered this in this video, which at the time of this video making, I call it video 32. Okay, we'll just use the .NET command line interface to add it to our project. So make sure you go to the main page where you have your .NET your CS project file. If you take a look at your CS project file, this is normally what you'll see if it's like a default. Okay, so we'll just run .NET add package Pomelo.EntityFrameworkCore.MySql. How do I know what to add? You can look at this video. I already showed you the details, so I'm not going to repeat them here. Instead, I'm just going to type it as is, .NET add package, okay, Pomelo.EntityFrame. Okay, I have an autocomplete there already. EntityFrameworkCore.MySql. Okay, you may be wondering why we don't have a EntityFrameworkCore.MariaDb. Well, MariaDb is actually a fork of one of the versions of MySql. Okay, and MySql was the original, but I think the Oracle bought over it, and there's some history. But MySql actually, this package actually works with it works with MariaDb. So this specific package is Entity Framework Core for MariaDB. So by installing this, you should be able to use MariaDB straight away. So just do .NET add package and do that. Okay, and it should be done. And the way you know that it works is you vim your .NET test CS project file. Yeah, I can resend this. Nothing. There will be no changes. Okay, vim your .NET test CS project file, and you will see that there is a package reference right here. Okay, you do not need to do the package reference yourself. You just make sure that you use the .NET command line interface, and then you use this .NET add. Okay, and then of course when you clone it from GitHub or whatever, just make sure you run .NET restore as well. Okay, if everything's up to date, then you're good to go. Okay, so this is a very important package. If not, you cannot import the namespace, the proper namespace, and the proper namespace to use here is called Microsoft.EntityFrameworkCore. So Microsoft Entity Framework Core is where you will find all your dbContext classes, dbContext options, and dbContextOptionsBuilder. Okay, so you must import this namespace in order to start working. Okay, so how are we supposed to do it? Well, I can go to, I navigated to the wrong folder. Okay, but before that, let me git add this first. .NET test.cs project. I'll commit and I'll say installed ef core MySql Pomelo package. version 6.0.1. Okay, and that's what I'm going to commit. I'll push it later. So now we'll go to the models, and what we want is to have an implementation such that we have this we can make a new component repo for MariaDb. So okay, we have a component repo for MariaDb, component repo, and I'll use the RAM as a template for it. So I'll copy it to component repo MariaDb, right? MariaDbServerVersion.cs, and let's go to component repo MariaDb.cs. And what are we supposed to have here? Okay, this one, this class, okay, we will change it. We'll change it to call component repo MariaDb, and this is the component repo MariaDb constructor. Okay, I will not change anything else here yet, because yeah, we want to make a component repo MariaDb class. Okay, but to interact with the MariaDb database, we first need to have our dbContext and everything. So this is one part of it. You need to prepare yourself a component repository for MariaDb. So when we do dependency injection, we can just switch it out once we configure this component repo MariaDb. Okay, great. That's one other thing down. Next thing is that, okay, well, we need application dbContext, AppDbContext to be injected into component repo MariaDb. So we need to make a AppDbContext, application dbContext specific for this MariaDb repository. So what's this AppDbContext? Well, if we take a look at, we copy component list, okay, or we vim component list. Yeah, we will see that this is where we actually store our list of components, and then this will be added as a singleton in order to in order to be used inside our component repository. So this list will be used inside this component repo repository. And likewise, we need a sort of a list as well, but it's not just a list, it's a list plus all the functions to deal with the database, MariaDb database, and that will be AppDbContext. So I'm just going to copy component list over. Let's see if there's any. Okay, let's do component list.cs, and I'll call this AppDbContext.cs. Okay, let's vim AppDbContext.cs. Now quit one side, and I'll open up nerd3 so that I can open any files I like. Okay, right. So we will not be using the iComponent collection interface. We'll just be making a new class here. Okay, so I change in Word 3dw. Oh, 3dw. Okay, change in Word. This class will be called, let's see, AppDbContext, which stands for application dbContext. Okay, which stands for application dbContext. Okay, so I'm just going to remove some things from this AppDbContext. I'm going to remove this constructor because that's no longer needed. And all of these things like populate list, everything, I do not want them as well. There's no more point in having them, so I will just use delete in the curly braces, di curly braces, in order to get rid of all this junk content which I really don't need anymore, and I'll delete most, if not all, of this stuff. Okay. What is this AppDbContext supposed to do? It's supposed to inherit from dbContext, the dbContext class. So remember, we are making a custom AppDbContext for our application, but it will inherit from the AppDbContext class. Okay, it will inherit from the AppDbContext class, and then you see the compiler will complain that the name type or namespace dbContext cannot be found. Okay, why? Because we are supposed to have this using this Microsoft.EntityFrameworkCore. Okay, so let's open a new line, and this is the package or namespace for EF core. Okay, so open a new line. I will just say using Microsoft.EntityFrameworkCore, and that should solve the problem. Okay, so now the problem is solved. You are able to do this. You are able to set this up. Okay, now this dbContext. Okay, I want to set up an interface for it because I want to eventually do dependency injection, but that's not the main reason. I mean, I can do dependency injection without the interface using the AppDbContext pool method, but the main reason is in case, okay, well, there are many ways of configuring this AppDbContext. I want eventually, I mean, for this video series, I'm only going to do one version of this application dbContext, and I'm going to use one of these methods, like the OnConfiguring method, in order to set up my application dbContext. But in case you want to clone the repository and then change things, such that you want to use this version of dependency injection, or this version of dependency injection, or any other version of dependency injection you want, like you use this AppDbContext, and then you want to put all your options here inside the dependency injection service container, whatever. Well, it's really up to you. You can swap it out if you want. Okay, my preference is just to stick with the simple things with the least confusing syntax, which is to use the OnConfiguring way of configuring the MariaDb server. What I'm saying is that there are many ways to do it. Okay, you don't have to do it this way. Most people like to do it this way. Okay, they like to do it this way, where they have the constructor and the base and everything. But I mean, you could do it like that. Absolutely do it like that. I leave it up to you how you want to do it. Okay, so moving on. So the reason why I'm giving an interface is so that if you want to make another implementation of this interface for dependency injection, you can. It's really up to you. Okay, but you don't have to do it like this. Okay, so I'm going to do an interface here. Okay, public interface AppDbContext. Now this is technically a bit unnecessary, but I like to do it like that. Okay, I have this interface, and I'll make sure that this AppDbContext inherits this interface, or rather implements this interface. That's the correct word. So if I want to make sure that AppDbContext inherits and implements interfaces, so how do I do it? Okay, so I can use the comma sign to make sure that this AppDbContext both inherits from dbContext and implements AppDbContext. Just make sure that the interface you are implementing should be towards the end. Okay, towards the end. So that means all your inheritance, all the classes you are inheriting from, should be at the beginning, and then the interface you are implementing should be towards the end. Okay, so that should be how you do it. Okay, all right. So that's the thing. Okay. So first thing first. Well, we will have a list there. We will have a list here, which is fine. But more importantly, okay, the more important thing is that, okay, I want to get something. I want to do something, right? I want to start configuring this thing. So what am I supposed to do? Okay, what I'm supposed to do is use write a line of code that says I want to start configuring this AppDbContext. How do I do it? I'll use this OnConfiguring method right here. So just copy and paste, or I'll just write it for you so that it's not so fast. protected override void OnConfiguring. Okay, so it will have some inputs and some no outputs. Okay, OnConfiguring itself should let me go back a bit to insert. OnConfiguring itself should have dbContextOptionsBuilder, and then it will have options builder here. Okay, we have the options builder here. Okay, so this is what we will have. So this is an empty options builder, which will use dependency injection to pass it into this class. Okay, or of course the other way, if you don't want to use dependency injection, is a bit of a cheat. If you don't want to use dependency injection and you want to tightly couple the thing, you will just use this new thing right here, this new keyword here. So if you don't want to use dependency injection like so, you can use the new keyword to make a new object. Okay, but I mean, we are not going to do that. We'll just follow. We'll just keep things simple. We will not create a new object within here. We'll just use this version. Okay, we'll just use this version. Okay, so dbContextOptionsBuilder, options builder, and under options builder, you're supposed to have this UseSQL server thing. Okay, options builder dot use SQL server, and then you're supposed to have something in there, right? Okay, problem is this: we are not using SQL server, we are using MariaDb. How are you supposed to do it? Okay, so the correct thing here to use is to have this thing called UseMySql. Okay, UseMySql. All right, so we'll have this. Instead of use SQL server, it should be UseMySql. Okay. Okay, now the thing about using MySQL is that you have to give it a lot of data, right? A lot of data here. Okay, that is not going to be ideal. Okay, not going to be ideal. So how are we supposed to configure the UseMySql part? And where can we find the source code? How do we know what data is supposed to be inside? So to deal with this, we need to jump to the Pomelo.EntityFrameworkCore. Okay. Okay, so Pomelo, okay, EF core source code. Okay, so Pomelo.EntityFrameworkCore.MySql will be on GitHub. You can just Google it online. And then remember what we are searching for specifically. We are searching for a UseMySql. Okay, we are searching for a UseMySql. So I can go to the source, and you see Entity Framework Core MySql or something like that. Or okay, oh great, it's not as simple. Okay, the easier way, use the search button, UseMySql. Okay, so find in the search button UseMySql, and then you'll see many places where you have this UseMySql option being used. Okay, so it should be defined somewhere. Okay, so where is this UseMySql done? Yeah, let's take a look. Okay, context base, UseMySql. All right, where's the UseMySql? Here it is. Hey, so this was the MySql dbContextOptionsBuilder extensions.cs. So this dbContextOptionsBuilder will have a method, okay, extension method, okay, because they're extending the capability of Microsoft Entity Framework Core dbContextOptionsBuilder. Traditionally, if you just download that package, it does not have a UseMySql option, but this code actually adds on the method. Okay, so this is where the constructor, this is where UseMySql is being defined. Okay, all the code that goes underneath is over here, but we don't really need to know what's going on. We just need to know what inputs to give it. Okay, so here are three inputs that UseMySql will use. The first one is the dbContextBuilder object. Okay, and then notice that it uses this keyword. Okay, notice that it uses this keyword. Okay, this keyword is actually, again, I want to reiterate, it refers to the current instance of the class. Okay, and is also used as a modifier as a first parameter of the extension method. Okay, the thing I want you to zoom in is that, okay, this refers to the current instance of the class. Okay, so when you have a dbContextOptionsBuilder object, okay, when you use the this keyword, it refers to this particular instance. Okay, that means when you have this dbContextOptionsBuilder, this options builder, okay, this whole object here, okay, this whole object here will be fed into the first input. Okay, so the first input, we will not deal with anything. We will not need to input anything. We only need to care about the second input. Okay, and you notice that over here you will specifically say that this cannot be a null object. Okay, we cannot leave this as a null object, meaning to say the object has to exist. We have to give it you have to provide this input. Okay, next thing is this thing called ServerVersion. Alright, where is ServerVersion? Okay, if we take a look here, you'll see this thing called MySql options equals MySql options ServerVersion, and then it will give you all this ServerVersion information right here. Okay, so we will use our trusty GitHub again, okay, to try and find where all these ServerVersion types and classes come from. Okay, so let's look for the ServerVersion. Okay, so this is a dbContextOptionsBuilder. Okay, which oh right, this one was where I wanted to show you the this is where I wanted to show you the OnConfiguring constructor, which we don't need anymore. Okay, this is a fresh GitHub page for Pomelo.EntityFrameworkCore.MySql. So we can't navigate back to the home page. Let's look for something called ServerVersion. Okay, so where is ServerVersion being defined? Okay, it's defined over here. Okay, it's defined over here. MySQL code generation server version creation.cs. Oh, this is not the definition. Sorry, this is not definition. They're just making a property right here. Okay, let's look for where ServerVersion is being defined. Okay, ServerVersion. Okay, let me scroll through quickly and I'll tell you where it is. Okay, for one, I will just use a different search keyword. I assume that ServerVersion is a kind of class, so I'm looking for the keywords class ServerVersion. Okay, right, so well, here we have a few things. We notice a few things here. Under source entity framework called MySQL infrastructure, MySQL ServerVersion.cs, you'll notice that MySQL ServerVersion actually inherits from the ServerVersion class, and over here MariaDbServerVersion actually also inherits from the ServerVersion class. So in a sense, MariaDbServerVersion is a subset of the ServerVersion class, right? Since it's a child class, it inherits from there, so that should be fine. There you go. Here's where we'll find it. Public abstract class ServerVersion. Okay, public abstract class ServerVersion. Okay, what's an abstract class? If you Google abstract class C#, okay, abstract classes are here. Okay, abstract modified indicates that the thing being modified has an incomplete or missing or incomplete implementation. Okay, use the abstract modifier to declare to indicate that the class is intended only to be a base class of other classes. What does it mean here? Okay, it means that we cannot make ServerVersion objects. Okay, this ServerVersion object exists solely here only to be inherited into another class. Okay, so remember we talked about inheritance, like this AppDbContext inherits from dbContext. So what it means is that all the properties, all the functions, all the methods from dbContext will be automatically copied over into AppDbContext. Likewise, this server version also will be copied over. This server version here will be copied over into the classes such as the MariaDbServerVersion and MySqL Okay, so server version right here is you cannot make an object out of this server version because it has this abstract keyword. What is this abstract keyword here saying? It is saying that the whole purpose of this class is that it will only contain the purpose of this class is just to contain all of these properties and all of these functions, right? Yeah, all of these functions and properties solely to be, all of these are just here to be packaged and inherited by another class. So which classes actually inherit from server version? Okay, MySql server version and MariaDb server version. So both of these are valid server version types. So you need to make server version objects so that you can feed it into the server version input here. Okay, so that's how I will do it. Okay, I'll do it in a rather manual manner, right, by searching in the entity framework core, Pomelo entity framework core. So I'm looking for the input server version, and I'll use the MariaDb server version to put it into the server version thing right here. All right. So what do I do? Okay, I mean, of course, that's not the only way to do it. Well, you can use this MySql options.serverversion long code here. You can do that if you want. I'll leave it up to you, but that's not the way I choose to do it because I want to understand what's going on behind the code, right? And this code is saying that I need a server version object, and the server version object that I'm looking for is either a MySql server version or MariaDb server version. And since we want to use a MariaDb server version, well, we will use this MariaDbServerVersion class in order to put it into the server version right here for the UseMySql. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so maybe over here I will open a new line and I'll have this private class or private property called MariaDbServerVersion, because remember MariaDbServerVersion, okay, this is the ServerVersion.cs, MariaDbServerVersion.cs. Yeah, this MariaDbServerVersion is a class in itself, and you can make objects out of this class. So, and it is a type as well. So right, so we'll just call this server version, private MariaDbServerVersion server version. So this is the access modifier, this is the type, and this is the object, the object that we are typing it as, the variable type. So I'm going to make it a property. I'm going to give it get and set, give it a get and set things. Of course, let's do this as well. So once we have this, we will need to of course declare this object, and then we can use the constructor to declare it. I can do a public AppDbContext. Okay, I'm going to have a constructor here. I'm not going to take in any arguments for the first version of this constructor. Okay, so server version equals to new MariaDb server version. Okay, so I'm declaring a new object here called MariaDb server version. Okay, and this, why are we making this? We need to just to recap, we are feeding this server version as an input into OptionsBuilder.MySql. So I'm going to put an insert here, server version. Okay, or I can say to be even more specific, I will use the this keyword to refer to the fact that I'm using this specific server version object. I can put insert this, and I'll put the insert this over here as well. Okay, so I want to be very specific that I am referring only to this server version right here. So I'll be very specific with my naming convention. Let's see if there are any errors. Okay, yeah, well, the errors are that the MariaDb server version here does not contain a constructor that takes 0 arguments, which means you need to provide information for the server version, quite obviously,
Okay, so for now I'll stop because it's been 30 minutes, so I'll continue more in the next video. Thanks for watching. Hope this is helpful to lessen the confusion. Okay, see you.